Bray Wyatt's alter ego Uncle Howdy seemingly appears in person for the first time last night on Friday Night SmackDown. Roman Reigns could possibly be working both nights of WrestleMania next year against two different opponents. Speaking of which, we have an update on Cody Rhodes' return to WWE ahead of WrestleMania next year. John Cena has been announced for the final edition of SmackDown before 2022 comes to a close. What will he be doing next year at WrestleMania? Charlotte Flair also nears a WWE return. Kurt Angle recreates an iconic Attitude Era moment last night on SmackDown. Sami Zayn could be getting a different look ahead of Roman Reigns' return to television next week. An update on Matt Riddle with his injury after being written off of WWE television, possibly this past Monday night on Raw. When will William Regal return to WWE? We have his return date to the company. Matt Cardona, is he going to return to WWE? Plus, a possible reality series for Cardona and his wife Chelsea Green. Logan Paul, could he be in the Royal Rumble in January? Why was WWE in LA filming commercials this week? And Veer Mahaan is pulled from an NXT Premium Live event. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well, as always, and as you can tell from that intro, there are plenty of news stories to get into today. So let's get straight into it. Let's talk about Bray Wyatt. It appears we're getting closer to the unveiling of Uncle Howdy, the supposed alter ego of the former Universal Champion. Last night on SmackDown, LA Knight came down to the ring to present evidence that it was Wyatt who had ambushed him over the past few weeks, despite Wyatt's repeated insistence that he played no part in the backstage attacks on the former NXT superstar. Eventually, Uncle Howdy showed up on the Titantron and implored Knight to do it and uncover Wyatt's lies. "What are you waiting for?" Uncle Howdy asked Knight. "Don't you want to be respected? Do it. Don't you want to be feared? He deserves to be punished. He deserves to suffer. The door is closing." Uncle Howdy's appearance on the Titantron was interspersed with images of Wyatt's old personas and even an image of Knight slapping Wyatt a few weeks ago. The video seemingly goaded Knight to taking action. Quote, "If you need any more evidence, you'd have to be a cross-eyed half-wit to not tell that Uncle Howdy was him," Knight said while reacting to Uncle Howdy's message. "If nobody else is going to do anything about it, I'll tell you what, Bray, I'll come back there and do something about it." At this point, Knight stormed to the backstage area as the show cut to a match between Legado del Fantasma and the Viking Raiders. But later on in the show, Knight entered a locker room and came across a shirt with a Wyatt Moth logo on it. You can see it on the screen right there. However, the lights then went off, and just as Knight turned a light on his phone, he came across a person wearing the exact same mask worn by Wyatt in his return at Extreme Rules. Upon seeing the mysterious figure, Knight yelled, "What?" as WWE cut to a commercial break. It's worth noting that this was the first instance of Wyatt's supposed alter ego appearing in person that clearly. He has technically appeared in the background of shots recently. Even LA Knight pointed out that fact in the promo, saying that when he was attacked every single time, you could spot this very same mask in the background. But this is the first time we've seen the mask up close. Now, on the November 25 episode of SmackDown, Uncle Howdy actually threatened to unmask himself and said it's coming several times while addressing Wyatt in the ring. There's been speculation that Uncle Howdy's eventual unveiling will lead to the debut of this reported and rumoured Wyatt 6 stable. Now, when it comes to Bray Wyatt, there is some confusion as to if he was actually at SmackDown last night. It's a possibility that he was. It's a possibility that he's not. Of course, there's been a lot of upsetting news going on in his family at this period of time. And while SmackDown was actually still on the air last night, Bray Wyatt took to social media to share a personal message about a family member. Of course, earlier this week, Barry Windham had to be rushed to the hospital and was reportedly in an intensive care unit. While further reports have noted that he has seen enough improvement to leave the ICU for a standard hospital care floor, there's certainly a long road ahead to recovery. Now, Bray Wyatt, real name Wyndham Rotunda, nephew of Barry Windham, has taken to his social media accounts to share a heartfelt message as well as an important link. Admitting that he typically likes to keep his personal life and wrestling life more separate, there was something important he wanted to share. While initially he shared his personal feelings, having admired his father and uncles from a young age, the wisdom of an aging into a man himself brings a different perspective to events for him. Rotunda saying in a video on Instagram, quote, "This week my uncle Barry Windham had a massive heart failure in Atlanta. He went down and didn't have a pulse for 10 to 20 minutes. So he was away. He was gone. And I wanted to thank one specific man, Michael Todd Layek, a random citizen who was there and gave him CPR for the entire time. He's the reason we have Barry still, why he's alive and still with us. Barry Windham has given his life to his profession. His whole life has been about this, just like mine, and I wanted to share that I'm incredibly thankful to have him back. And my sister set up a GoFundMe in his name, and no one is obligated to share anything, but if you could, that would be incredibly helpful. And take it from me, sometimes when you're someone like that, it's incredibly powerful to remind them that they mean a lot to a lot of people. He went on to end the message hoping that everybody who hears it remembers some integral advice. Always be good to the ones you love. As always, remind them of that, because nothing is forever. Now, if you're able to give to the Barry Windham GoFundMe page, it's easily found on social media. We'll also put links in the video description as well. Again, really sad news this week, but positive news that he's on the mend and he's able to recover. So obviously all of that happened on SmackDown last night. Again, don't know if it's Bray Wyatt. You can't really tell by that image. It could just be anyone behind the mask. So we'll have to wait and see if there's any confirmation on that. But certainly an interesting development when it comes to Wyatt's alter ego really appearing for the first time since Extreme Rules. Now let's talk about Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns, of course, is the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. And what's he going to be doing come WrestleMania next year? Well, possibly quite a lot. An update has emerged on plans for undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 39. While we're still almost 4 months away from next year's grandest stage of them all, rumours have been swirling surrounding plans for major matches at the two-night event. Previous reports indicated that The Rock will face Roman Reigns at the April 1st/April 2nd, 2023 event, providing that his schedule allows him to train for an in-ring return. Per Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, there have been discussions about Reigns working both nights of WrestleMania 39. Noting that the working ideas are for Reigns to face Cody Rhodes and The Rock, Meltzer wrote, quote, "One of the things talked about internally in WWE is for Reigns to wrestle both nights at Mania, with the working ideas being Cody Rhodes and Dwayne Johnson. Nothing is definite, and actually today, the best bet is that it won't take place like that. There is also talk of splitting up the title so Raw has a world champion after Mania, but anything until probably mid-January, when plans have to be finalized because of the Rumble for this year, is just talk. The complete overreaction when I noted Johnson winning the Rumble thing as the internal pie in the sky idea, which of course is in a perfect world, that's what you would want to do, but that hardly means the perfect world scenario is what's going to happen. Johnson has far bigger things on his plate like the XFL launch, movies, TV, whatever." Of course, Roman Reigns last defended his gold against Logan Paul at the November 5, Crown Jewel Premium Live event. At Survivor Series on November 26, Reigns, the Usos, Solo Sikoa, and Sami Zayn defeated the Brawling Brutes, Drew McIntyre, and Kevin Owens in a War Games match. I think it's funny, Dave Meltzer saying, "Oh, the overreaction to my pie in the sky stuff." Well, that's why you need to be careful with your words. Now, when it comes to Roman Reigns, he is going to be back on TV next week. We've got more details on that, but he's currently actually out of action with an injury. In the current Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer has clarified the situation for both Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre, stating, quote, "Both Reigns and McIntyre are out of action right now due to suffering ruptured eardrums at Survivor Series. It's a short-term thing and both should be back soon. Reigns is not on any of the post-Christmas shows, not even Madison Square Garden. McIntyre is expected back for those shows." McIntyre was hurt at the Survivor Series, but kept working through it on the December 4 edition of a house show in Portland, but didn't realize he was hurt that bad until he was examined after the show. He posted being medically disqualified on December 5, but he and WWE did not say exactly what his injury was. Now, Reigns was actually injured during the main event following a slap from Kevin Owens that reportedly left Reigns furious. There have been recent reports there may still be heat between the two men. Reigns wasn't at the December 5 episode of Raw, with a report stating he was in LA with his special counsel, Paul Heyman. Now, again, when it comes to Roman Reigns, he will be back next week on SmackDown, possibly with a segment involving Sami Zayn. We'll touch on that later on, but certainly it would appear that he had a ruptured eardrum, but I don't think there were plans for him to wrestle anyway between now and possibly the Royal Rumble either way. So in terms of his in-ring future, there isn't really an issue when it comes to that. Now, we did talk there about Roman Reigns possibly facing Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania for one, if not both, of his titles. But what is Rhodes' status for WrestleMania in the build-up to it? Well, we have an update on Cody Rhodes' status leading up to WrestleMania next year. Now, Cody Rhodes' impending return remains a widely discussed topic among professional wrestling fans. The American Nightmare quickly emerged as a top player in WWE after defeating Seth freaking Rollins in a trio of victories at WrestleMania 38, WrestleMania Backlash, and finally at Hell in a Cell. Though he secured that impressive third victory over Rollins in June, Rhodes also sustained a pectoral tear heading into the bout, and he's been on the shelf since then. After wrestling through the injury, Rhodes underwent surgery to repair it, and WWE initially projected a 9-month recovery period for Rhodes. He later noted that his recovery appeared to be ahead of schedule, teasing a possible return at the Royal Rumble in January, which would be in line with when he was expected to be off the sidelines and back into action. In a new report, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select said that Cody Rhodes is, quote, fully expected to be back in time for WrestleMania 39 in Los Angeles. In anticipation of his return, Rhodes, or at least someone looking dressed up like him, flew to California this week to film a commercial where he was spotted locking up with two-time WWE Grand Slam champion The Miz on an LA bridge. We're going to talk about that commercial later on. In addition, The Miz's wife and fellow WWE superstar Maurice was supposed to be in attendance as well, although it's unclear whether she was meant to be part of the shoot or if it was simply there just to be with her husband. As the road to WrestleMania quickly approaches, Rhodes appears to be a near lock for the April event, though many have envisioned him winning the Royal Rumble to set up a WrestleMania main event match against Roman Reigns. As I mentioned, there are still conversations suggesting The Rock could be involved for a WrestleMania match against his family member as well. Once we get more details, of course, we'll bring it to you here on the channel. John Cena, let's talk about WrestleMania. John Cena, what's his status for WrestleMania? We'll touch on that in just a second. What we do know, is that John Cena is going to be back on WWE television before the end of this year. For those wondering when they'd see John Cena in WWE again, the time is now. See what I did there, or at least in a couple weeks from now. Variety has learned that the Peacemaker star and former WWE champion, 16-time WWE champion that is set to appear on the final SmackDown of the year on December 30 in Tampa, Florida. This comes on the heels of Cena's only other WWE appearance this year, the June 27 episode of Raw, celebrating his 20 years in WWE. While Cena did not wrestle that night, he did appear in several backstage segments throughout and cut a promo of appreciation as well. While there's no word on whether he'll be mixing up in the squared circle before the new year arrives, fans don't have to travel too far back to remember Cena's last match. That came at SummerSlam last year in August, where Cena fell short in an attempt to dethrone Roman Reigns and claim the Universal Championship for himself. Yet while his in-ring career is nearing its end, life as an actor for him is just getting started. In recent years, he's appeared in films such as Fast and Furious, in The Suicide Squad. He's been obviously in Peacemaker, that TV series. The second season is coming soon. Brilliant show, by the way. One of my favorite superhero series of the year. Fantastic. Go and watch it. And what he's going to be doing at SmackDown, we don't know. I would think possibly there's a possibility he could actually set up a match for WrestleMania, even though that would be 4 months away. He could certainly plant the seeds for that, because an update has emerged on Cena's availability in early 2023 ahead of WrestleMania 39 in April. As I mentioned, there's a lot of speculation on what Cena could be doing, if he's even going to have time for the event. Dave Meltzer shared some light on Cena's 2023 filming schedule in the latest edition of the Wrestling Observer newsletter. Per Meltzer, Cena will be in Australia shooting the comedy movie Ricky Stenicki throughout February and March. This would mean that if Cena was going to return to the ring at WrestleMania 39, he'd have to train in Australia while shooting the movie. Now, the event takes place in early April, so it is possible that Cena could return to the US just in time to appear at WrestleMania 39. Again, we could see a situation whereby, because Cena is pretty much blocked out in February and March of next year, that they shoot the angle for WrestleMania at the December 30 episode of SmackDown. So keep your eyes peeled for more details, or certainly a big angle happening on that show. Speaking of return, Charlotte Flair. A lot of people have been talking about Charlotte Flair. Of course, she hasn't been seen on WWE television since losing the SmackDown Women's Championship to Ronda Rousey at WrestleMania Backlash in May. Whilst her absence has been largely unexplained, she did get married during this period of time, and people assumed it was that, but people have been slightly confused why it's taken so long for her to return. Ric Flair, her father, even said recently she keeps everything to herself. Her husband, Andrade El Idolo, did recently say that Flair had taken some time off due to personal reasons. Again, we don't know the details on that. We're not going to pry. But we have seen indications that Flair is gearing up for an in-ring return. In a recent Instagram photo, she was seen in a wrestling ring with Alba Fyre and Zoe Stark. Now, in the current Wrestling Observer newsletter, Dave Meltzer has provided an update from the WWE's perspective, saying, quote, "Creative is making plans for the Charlotte Flair return. As WWE approaches its road to WrestleMania season, it's very likely that Ronda Rousey is going to face Raquel Rodriguez at the Royal Rumble. There's a lot of discussion that Charlotte Flair could appear at the event. She could return prior to the event. She could return in the Rumble itself. But certainly, Creative, as of right now, is making plans for a return for the former SmackDown, Raw, and NXT Women's Champion." SmackDown last night featured the return of Kurt Angle in his hometown as we celebrated his birthday, and he actually recreated an iconic Attitude Era moment. Fellow Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle and Gable Steveson recreated an iconic Attitude Era moment on SmackDown last night, hosing down Alpha Academy with milk as part of Angle's birthday celebration segment. The segment began with Angle stepping out to the ring to a rousing ovation from his hometown fans in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, until Alpha Academy interrupted Angle and bashed the Hall of Famer for not inviting them to his birthday celebration. Chad Gable then referred to Angle as petty and noted that he had lost 2 of the 3 I's, integrity and intensity, and it would be wise to keep his last shred of intelligence by getting out of the ring. Gable also made it clear that Otis was going to eat all of Angle's birthday cake, as he once again urged the legendary star to leave the ring. Angle obliged by walking up the ramp, but then stopped on stage and had a message for the Alpha Academy, saying, quote, "I'll tell you what, if you're going to eat all that cake, you're going to need a lot of milk," Angle told Gable and Otis. At this point, Steveson came riding down on a milk truck, which Angle hopped onto. Once the truck reached the ringside area, Steveson and Angle initially started throwing milk from cartons until they upped the ante and pulled out a milk gun, a milk hose. With Otis and Gable doused in milk, Steveson and Angle chugged milk in the ring as SmackDown went off the air. After the show, Triple H and the rest of the WWE locker room celebrated Angle's birthday in the ring, as can be seen on videos on social media. Certainly, it was a fantastic segment and a lot of fun. I mean, sometimes I'm a bit cautious about recreating Attitude Era stuff, but it was fine. It was what it was. We're at a dead point when it comes to stuff on WWE television for the year, so it was fine. Earlier in the show, though, Steveson actually teased his debut match against none other than Braun Strowman during a backstage confrontation with the monster of all monsters, but it was non-committal to joining the blue brand. He was originally drafted to Raw last year, of course, and according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, Steveson is nearing his in-ring debut and will be making more televised appearances going forward. The 22-year-old wrestler had reportedly halted his training to be a WWE superstar after undergoing a procedure to correct Wolff-Parkinson-White syndrome, a rare heart condition. He resumed his training in October at the Performance Center, working with former WWE star Ken Anderson, as well as participating in practice matches. So expect to see more of Gable Steveson in the near future. Last night on SmackDown also saw a big tease of a future Sami Zayn angle. Is the stage being set for the Bloodline to turn on Sami Zayn, or is he just getting a new look? Well, last night on SmackDown, the Bloodline members were shown celebrating in their locker room following the Usos' successful title defense against the Brawling Brutes. During the segment, Jey Uso revealed that WWE's top faction had a real big night planned for Sami Zayn on next week's edition of SmackDown, where the Tribal Chief Roman Reigns is set to appear for the first time since Survivor Series. Zayn said, quote, "I'm in awe of you guys," after they successfully defended their titles. He then asked Jey if he was feeling oozy, to which Jey responded, "I'm feeling oozy juicy, dog." At this point, Zayn asked his fellow stablemates if they were ready to leave the arena and grab a bite to eat. Just as the Bloodline prepared to leave for dinner, Jey pulled Zayn back and asked him a question. "You know the Tribal Chief is coming back next week, right?" "Yeah," Zayn responded. "It might be a good idea for you to trim your head and your beard." "Trim my hair? What do you mean? Why? What are you talking about?" a confused Zayn responded. "Just saying, man, after War Games, with how you've been leveling, easy for me to say, up every week, I think next week in Chicago is going to be a real big night for you. Trim up." And although Zayn responded with a yeet to end the segment, he did so reluctantly, which seemed to tease dissension between Jey and Zayn. It's worth noting that Jimmy and Solo Sikoa weren't in the room during the conversation. Would Reigns and his professed right-hand man Jay finally turn on Zayn on next week's show? If so, would the rest of the bloodline object? Fans on social media are certainly excited about the possibility, especially heading into WrestleMania season. Now, again, it has been heavily rumoured that Roman Reigns will face Sami Zayn at Elimination Chamber in February, which happens to be in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. It's also been rumoured that Roman Reigns will face Kevin Owens for the Undisputed Universal Championship at the Royal Rumble. Myself, I can see several things. I can see the bloodline turning on him. They've planted the seeds with Zayn lying to the face of Jey Uso before Survivor Series, although Zayn, of course, pledged his allegiance to the bloodline at that very same show in the War Games match. We could just see a situation where officially Sami Zayn is crowned Sami Uso or renamed Sami Uso. They did tease that a couple of weeks ago too. So certainly a lot of possibilities, and maybe Zayn's going to get a new look. I hope not, because I like the Sami Zayn look as it is. Matt Riddle did a stretcher job on Raw this week, and it was announced on SmackDown that Riddle was rushed to hospital after he suffered, quote, significant trauma to his trachea, lost his voice, and had difficulty breathing following Solo Sikoa's Samoan spike attack. As I mentioned, we don't know if it's a legitimate injury. We don't know if it's just a storyline. We're not sure. As I mentioned, at some point, if Riddle's injury is a legitimate one, it could be a situation where Riddle's just off TV for a little while and he returns with Randy Orton. But as of right now, there's no update on Randy Orton's in-ring return. He underwent spinal fusion surgery a few months ago or weeks ago. So it doesn't appear that Orton is returning anytime soon alongside his RK Bro stablemate. William Regal has been the talk of the wrestling industry recently, of course, making his AEW departure and final appearance this week on Dynamite in a backstage segment. After recent reports that Regal will return to WWE in the new year, PW Insider is now reporting that William Regal will start back with WWE in the first week of 2023. Regal made his final AEW appearance on the December 7 edition of Dynamite in a promo segment. PW Insider notes that this was pre-taped as he had a trip to Great Britain planned. The wrestling veteran started with AEW in March, making his debut at the Revolution pay-per-view. He's also shared a farewell message to the members of the Blackpool Combat Club on social media, which can be seen on his Twitter page as well. So Regal will be back in the first week of 2023 with WWE. Of course, he's not going to be an on-screen character. That was a conditional part of his release from his AEW contract. Matt Cardona and Chelsea Green have been heavily hinted or rumored to be returning to WWE, with previous reports indicating that WWE was interested in bringing Chelsea Green back to the company. The former SmackDown star is yet to make her on-screen return to WWE. Per Dave Meltzer in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, there has been some talk about potentially signing Green and her husband Matt Cardona, noting that there has been a pitch to give them their own reality TV show through E! Meltzer writes, quote, whether this comes to fruition, there are talks with E! About a new reality show. They are looking for legitimate wrestling couples, so some upcoming signings could relate to that if the project is finalized. The Matt Cardona name was mentioned as possible if the deal goes through, since Chelsea Green is in. Of course, Cardona was let go by WWE during the April 2020 round of cuts. Green was released by the company a year later in April 2021. So there is a possibility they could come back. Again, I'm still not sure that's the best move for Cardona. It might be the best move for Chelsea Green, but I think Cardona does better on the indies and in the smaller companies than he does in WWE. But there is certainly unfinished business there, and he could return. Speaking of returns, Logan Paul could be in the Royal Rumble match. It's now been indicated that Logan Paul could be one star who makes a surprise appearance on January 28 in the men's Royal Rumble match. Speaking on the Breakdown podcast, co-host Wade Plemons, who covers a variety of combat sports, including crossover, YouTube boxing, noted that Logan Paul will try to wrestle in 6 weeks. Plemons said, quote, fair play, I would do the same thing that other guys don't, and like almost pay to win type of thing, because Conor has the money to do it and some other guys may not. But that's the game you play. If you're a superstar and you have that kind of money, the same reason that Logan Paul has talked about he's going to get stem cell therapy, we got an update on that. His MCL was the only thing that was torn. He didn't have a triple tear. He's going to try and wrestle in 6 weeks apparently. He's going to get stem cell stuff, and that stuff is great. You have the money to do it. Why the F not? Now, 6 weeks from now could place us a little week from the Royal Rumble event. So if Paul can get cleared in time, he could show up for the annual 30-man Rumble match. Again, that's a positive that only his MCL was torn. He didn't have a triple tear. He didn't tear his meniscus. He didn't tear his ACL. People have been known to kind of work through that just through rehab. So there's a possibility, a real good possibility, that Logan Paul could be in the Rumble match, and certainly you would think will be wrestling at WrestleMania next year. WWE was spotted in LA. We kind of touched on this earlier on, and WWE CCO Triple H snapped a photo with Bad Bunny in LA. He posted it on his social media this week. He said, quote, Bad Bunny is such a big star that when he drops in to have lunch, he just lands his plane in downtown LA, eats them, and then takes off. Hashtag rockstar life. As I mentioned, it would appear this was actually part of a big commercial shoot. According to a report from Mike Johnson at PW Insider, he states that per multiple sources, numerous WWE stars were in town to film a commercial for the WWE 2K video game series. Amongst the top names that were in town to film over the last few days, Roman Reigns, Bianca Belair, Rhea Ripley, and Cody Rhodes. I mentioned Triple H was there, Bad Bunny was there, so it would appear it was for a commercial for WWE 2K. That's what that whole Cody Rhodes, The Miz thing was about as well, so commercials for the game coming up soon. Finally, it's NXT Deadline today with everything that's been going on at the moment. There's two events there. It's Deadline and Final Battle for Ring of Honor. One name that was meant to be competing at Deadline is now not, that being Veer Mahaan. He is not medically cleared for NXT Deadline as a precaution ahead of WWE's major live event in India in January. The Creed brothers were set to take on Indus Sher at the event this evening, but the match was pulled during the latest episode of NXT. In a segment, Veer and Sangha withdrew their challenge after learning that Julius Creed requires further tests on a potential rib injury and would not be 100%. The reason for this change was explained during an episode of Wrestling Observer Radio. Dave Meltzer saying, quote, the real story is that Veer's not cleared. They're trying to protect him because Veer and Sangha have to be healthy for that India show because it's built all around them, and that's in mid-January. And there's a lot of money involved in that. So basically, they can't risk him being hurt to miss that show. So they pulled him from this show, which is, from a financial standpoint, not important at all. Again, it's been reported in recent weeks that WWE will be holding a major live event in Hyderabad, India on January 18, 2023 at the Gachibowli Indoor Stadium. This will be WWE's first live event in India since December 2017. So if we get any more details on Veer's status for that show or in-ring status moving forward, we'll talk about it here on the channel. But there you go, guys. That's the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's WWE news stories in the comment section below. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.